Yep, I'm still here.
All right, good. Nice to see you, man.
Nice to see you too, man.
So, Chuck, I'm actually coming to you from French Valley Vineyard.
French Valley?
Yeah, so Bellago just bought French Valley, so it's our new sister winery. And so we've just spent the afternoon tasting through 30 French Valley wines.
30?
Chuck, we're pros, man.
Well,
30.
Charlie, I know you're pros, but 30?
30, yes. So we just tasted through 30 wines, old vintages, new vintages, trying to figure out where we're going to position all of these wines as far as quality and price point goes and stuff. So it's been quite a remarkable afternoon for me. I hope I'm not sure about the quality of the Wi-Fi here, so I hope it holds up. But
my Wi-Fi is down, and this is just my phone's.
Oh, good. Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed on both ends. How's that?
That's cool.
So,
but I'm recording, so everything should be good.
All right, good. So I picked. I know you said pick about 3 wines, so I expanded that to about 5 that we can talk about. But anyway, yeah, so I'm ready to keep going. 30 is not enough.
Well, you're going to have to send me the information because I would love to showcase you a House of Pure Vin.
So what I'll do after we're done here, Chuck, is if you want me to send you any additional information, I can do that. So yeah, this tasting over here just ran a little long, and so but they've got Wi-Fi here, and so I'm coming to you from French Valley Vineyards. And in the background is one of our tractors with a special piece of equipment that helps us improve the quality of the fruit. And so you know, I literally just set this up. I pushed everybody aside and said, I gotta go. I gotta be on this Zoom thing. So we pushed a bunch of bottles away, and here we are. So
well, that's awesome. Again, thanks, Charlie, for doing this, because it's been a while.
Yes, it is.
Since we tasted together. I want to say it was at that fundraiser that was at the Book Cadillac or the Weston.
Yep, that's the last time I saw you, Chuck, was at the Weston. Yep.
Yeah. And what was the blend that you kept under the table? Do you remember?
Oh, that was Tempesta 13. And
Tempesta 13.
Yep. And so this what I have tonight is just to show you the label of Tempesta, but this is actually 13. But we just tasted tonight as a part of this tasting Tempesta 16, which is unlabeled with this classy painter tape label. But that's Tempesta 16, and it's an absolutely lovely wine. You know, just really, really nice. And so what I thought I'd do tonight was to talk about our Pinot Grigio Chardonnay, which is our frontline, really food-friendly white that is available pretty much everywhere. And then I thought I'd talk about our Pinot Noir 17. So, because I mean, I love Pinot Noir, and I'm going to talk about Bellago Red. And so the Tempesta is sort of like the reserve version of the red. And so I thought I'd talk about those collectively as sort of reds, because we've been spending a lot of time the last 5 years on reds. Chuck, have you ever met Blake Lougheed, who's our main winemaker now? I'm the head winemaker, but Blake's the main and the cellar winemaker. Have you ever met Blake?
I haven't met Blake. I think we were trying to set up a tasting, and I think Blake was going to lead the tasting at the winery.
Yeah, he's still here. He's still here. I'm going to pop out for a minute. This is Blake. So Blake, this is Chuck Jackson.
Hey, Chuck. How you doing?
Blake.
There you
How
are.
are you, Blake?
Good. Just saying hi. What, so you guys are gonna have a whole group, or what's the deal?
That's what we're waiting on now to see who joins up.
Nice. Where are you coming from? Where are you at right now?
I'm on the west side of Detroit,
All right.
over by University of Detroit.
Cool. Well, you gonna come visit us sometime?
I've been planning actually probably for the last 15 years. And something always comes up, but I'm gonna make it a point of getting up there in the next couple of months. So.
Well, one of us will definitely show you a good time. You know, either Charlie or me will show you the ropes when you finally make it. But nice to meet you.
Are you working on the French Valley project also?
Yeah. Yeah, we just were evaluating a handful of wines. It's pretty fun opportunity. You don't get to do it too often that you try through so many different things, you know. It gives you a lot of perspective of how the wine, like if you taste the wine by itself one night, you don't have as much perspective as you taste all of them at once, and you can kind of compare and really see how the different rankings end up, you know. It's fun. But I think you're freezing up. Anyway, if you're talking, I can't hear you anymore. Hopefully that works out. See ya. He froze.
Oh, Chuck, you froze. Yeah, but we might have frozen. This is what you were talking about, Sarah, right?
Yeah. It's a real tricky space. Most beautiful, my favorite place to be, but it's hard if you're trying to work.
Oh man, Chuck, you still there? So Sarah, will it just come back?
You would have to go inside.
Really? Oh, I lost Chuck. I don't know. I can see me, but not Chuck. Chuck, you there? Shoot. I don't know yet. Hey, you're back. Chuck, you back?
Hey, I'm back.
All right, good. Wait, all right, I'm going inside closer to the Wi-Fi unit.
Okay.
We don't get the cool tractor in the background, but we get you, so that's better. So Chuck, I don't hear you, but I hear you. I see you drinking wine.
Oh yeah, I'm still here. You hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Got a team behind you.
All right. Need that.
Yes, you do.
Thank you. All right.
All right, there you go.
So Chuck, all these guys that were here tasting with me are helping me out, bring me all the bottles as I move my spot. So that's cool. So
Okay.
So hopefully this will all work out well.
Definitely. So tell me more about the French Valley project.
So Chuck, about a year ago, so I'm almost 70 now. I'll be 70 in a couple of weeks. And
Okay.
so I'm thinking about retirement, and
Okay.
my wife is thinking about retirement. So we sold Del Lago.
Okay.
So I'm still the head winemaker and the head grape grower, but we sold Del Lago to a man named John Heekin, really sweet person, and he's totally committed to maintaining the quality that we've developed over the years. And Blake, Blake has been my main protege for about 5 or 6 years. And Blake is a really brilliant winemaker. And so I'm really blessed to have Blake to work with. And so the two of us make a really wonderful team. And we're both still here. And a man named Thomas Moreno is our vineyard manager, and he's still here. And so we've got this core group that has been behind Bel Lago for years, and we're all still here. And the cool thing is that John is totally committed to the quality, maintaining the quality that we've had, and he's expanded sources.
Okay, you're cutting in and out, Charlie.
Of great bandwidth. I've got a message on my screen that says Chuck Jackson's network bandwidth is low. So
Really?
you mentioned, that's what it says. So I don't know if it doesn't matter. It's one of us. There's nothing I can do about it here. Oh, I wonder if it could turn my phone into a hotspot. I wonder if that would work. I've actually never tried that. Have you tried that before?
Not yet. It has the capability, but I haven't tried it.
See, we've got this tasting just ran low, and I knew they had internet here, so I thought, cool, I'll just stay here and do it. But we've got cable Wi-Fi at the winery at Bel Lago, which is pretty stable, But I thought that they had the same thing here, but once I turned it on, they said, "Oh no, we've got hardwired CenturyTel telephone Wi-Fi."
Okay.
Thank you, Julie.
You're welcome.
Much appreciated. So I can see. So I don't know where it's coming from, but I can see if I can figure out how to do this. Turn my phone into a hotspot.
Well, right now you're coming in pretty clear, so.
Cool. I won't worry about it because I have no idea how to do that. So
Right now you're coming in pretty clear, so.
all right. Well, maybe we've started to stabilize, Chuck. That'd be cool.
Definitely.
So I was going to try to pull up those questions that you asked me about, but when we get to them, you just ask me the questions.
I got them right here.
So do you want me to, so I don't see anybody else, but you're recording this anyway, right?
Yes, sir.
Cool. So do you want me to talk about these wines, or how would you like to proceed?
Talk about the wines, because I'm trying to see what we can bring down the House of Pure Vin, because we're about to turn into a wine bar.
Oh, nice.
And so we're going to start serving stuff by the glass, as well as selling by the bottle. And
Cool.
I know how excellent your Pinot is.
Oh, you know me, Chuck. I love Pinot Noir, but let me start with. So I brought 3 reds for that reason, because we're so into reds at Bel Lago right now. So I'm just gonna show you this one. This is our Pinot Grigio Chardonnay. I'm sure you know this wine well. This is 75% Pinot Grigio, 25% Chardonnay. We actually first made this blend back in 1997 when we had our first barrel of Chardonnay from our expanded vineyard. And 97 was not a great year, and so I was thinking, what do I want to release 25 cases of okay Chardonnay, or what can we do with this wine? And so we sat around literally in the pole barn at the vineyard and tasted the different lots of wine and said, what can we do with this Chardonnay? And we came up with this wine, and it was so well loved that we've made it ever since. And this is our top selling wine because it's so food friendly. This wine will pair beautifully with even with Mexican food. And so Yeah, I mean, not many white, for hot foods, spicy foods, you tend to think in terms of Gewürz, Riesling, right? Or a wine with sweetness. This wine, there's something about that combination of those two grapes that makes it really work with spicy foods. It's really amazing. I mean, and the day I discovered that, Chuck, I had a brother-in-law who's a Californian who came out, and he came out at harvest, and he was making dinner for us. And his specialty is Mexican food. So he made all this hot, spicy food, and I thought, well, let's just drink margaritas, right? And then I thought for a second, I thought, no, wait a minute, we're winemakers. And so we brought out all the Riesling, the Gewürz, and then I threw this in sort of spur of the moment. This won the tasting. And that's the day I learned that this wine, there's something about this combination of this wine that makes it really appropriate for spicy foods. So for a dry white wine, pretty appropriate for that. And it's good. It's just so versatile. I don't want to say it's good with everything, but it's close to that,
Well, I would hope it's because of the cooler climate for your Chardonnay still leaves it a little bit more fruit forward. So
Oh, for sure. I'm sure that's it, Chuck. And it's stainless steel fermentation.
Right.
Up until last year, we had never made a stainless steel fermented Chardonnay other than as a component for this wine, because I love white Burgundy. And so for me, we've always made our Chardonnay. Do you know David Ramey from California? Have you had? You've somewhere along the line, you've probably had Ramey wines. Anyway, David Ramey is one of the finest Chardonnay makers in California, and he makes Burgundian style Chardonnay. And so when I first started to figure out how to make our Chardonnay, which is Burgundian style Chardonnay, I had visited Domaine Drouin in France, and I had spent literally days with David Ramey, all with a notebook, right? And took all these notes and then said, okay, how can I take these things that I've learned from these great Chardonnay makers and modify them for our fruit and make a wine that's really good? And so for barrel fermented Chardonnay, we're pretty well known, and I think we make a really lovely Burgundian style Chardonnay.
Yes.
That said, and that's what I love, right? But that's not, more people these days are moving more in terms of fresh fruity, right?
Right.
Do you see that as well?
I'm seeing that. I'm really just seeing that in what people are drinking more of.
Yep.
Where, even if it's not sweet, it's way more fruit forward.
Yeah.
So that's
for
I'm
me,
trends
yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, so in Chardonnay, I love that barrel fermented Chardonnay. I don't want too much oak. I don't want too much butter. I just want concentration and texture, right? But this wine it's always been basically stainless. Yeah, we'll throw a couple of barrels of Chard in here just to improve the richness, But what? I'm going to go off on a complete tangent here. But one of the things I thought about for tonight's tasting was it'd be fun to say to everybody, and so I'll say it now, but we won't spend so much time on it. And that is, this wine was crafted from marginal, or not this particular wine, but the original version was crafted from marginal Chardonnay and really excellent Pinot Grigio. And so what it does is it goes to the heart of winemakers' artistry, if you will. And that is trying to create a wine and craft a wine that creates synergy from the various components that you're using to blend the wine. And so what I'd like to say to all of your compatriots tonight is that don't be afraid to blend wines. It's not unusual for me to buy a wine, taste it, and think this wine is unbalanced. It's just too tart, or too, I'll use that as an example because it's the easiest thing, right? It's too tart. So unafraid, I will throw a little bit of sugar into a glass and say, okay, oh, that smooths this wine out. And I'm sure I can just feel the winemaker, like just shuddering what I've done to his wine, right? But the point is that it's fun to play around with different wines. I'm sure you've done this, Chuck, and that you get a couple of different wines and you play around, you blend them together, right? So
when I do my tastings, I always have people that if I have something, one is too sweet, one's too dry, I'll generally find a way to blend the two together and then
perfect.
serve it to them, and they're like, man, that's perfect. So
Yep. So you get this. That's what I'm talking about with this wine. So we took two varieties. We created this blend. It's our most popular wine. So that's got to say something about how perfect, if you will, it is. And so, but I encourage people to do that. Don't be afraid. Of course, the winemaker's crafted that wine with his heart, his or her heart. But all of our tastes are different, and we all like different things. And so don't be afraid to play around with these things. I mean, geez, if you want to make a nice rosé,
yep.
take a Riesling and a Cab and whatever, blend them together, or a Pinot Gris and a Pinot Noir, and blend a little bit together, make your own rosé. The cool thing about that is that, for better or worse, depending on how well you've done, no one on the planet gets to enjoy that wine except you and your guests.
Right.
Because it's so unique. And that's one of the beauties of wine, is that the uniqueness of all of these wines that different winemakers craft. What we craft at Bellago is different from what anybody else does anywhere. We have this vision that we try to pull together, and we make our wines in our vision. And so, we try to, with our whites, for example, we try to preserve that beautiful fresh fruit that we get from fruit grown on our peninsula, right? But because of what Blake and I like, we tend to make our wines a little bit softer. So a lot of the Northern Michigan wines, are really crisp, bright, fruit forward, which is really a wonderful thing. But we try to pull in more of a European influence to soften and really beautifully balance the wine. It's just what we like. And so we make wines that we like.
Right.
And we hope that, all of our customers like our wines too. And so we're all about extending the palate and richness. And we want to take that bright fruit that is the hallmark of our appellation, and we want to create richness. And so with the reds, we'll get into that in more detail in a minute, but with the reds, we will age our reds in barrels for up to 3 years to concentrate those wines and create that richness.
Right.
So
that was the reason why I went to, when I first decided I wanted to go to Europe, I knew I was going to go to Bordeaux. And again, that's the blender's paradise.
oh yeah, you are right, Chuck.
And they'll tell you, well, the Cab, even on the right bank, the Merlot wasn't doing that hot. So we're gonna increase the Cab, because the Cab really killed this season. So that's all about knowing your fruit, knowing what's good this year and what's not, and adjusting your blend accordingly.
It's everything. It's everything. So speaking of Bordeaux, so I had a great trip to Bordeaux once, and I learned a lot during that trip. And I was traveling. Have you ever met Andy Reynolds from Canada? He's a viticultural scientist from Brock University, and so he's close enough to you. You might have run across him at some point.
Okay.
But if you haven't, his specialty is how to grow grapes to create flavor. And I think he was the one that coined the phrase farming for flavor. And that's absolutely what we do here, is we farm for flavor. We change up how we grow each grape based on the flavor profile that we wish to harvest from that fruit. And So I traveled in Bordeaux with his name's Andy Reynolds, and I traveled in Bordeaux with Dr. Reynolds 1 year, and we went and we visited the winemaker at Lafitte Rothschild, and that was a pretty cool trip. But what I learned from that man was how to taste the fruit, how to decide when the fruit is ripe in the vineyard. So you go through and you taste the grapes, and you decide how the texture and the tannins and the fruit flavors are developing, and you make your decision not on chemistry, but you make your decision, because everybody knows how to run chemistry, right, in the wine business, but you make your decision on what do you taste in that grape that is going to translate into the wine, and it's only years of experience. And so that was a long time ago, and I came right back here and started tasting grapes like crazy, and since then it had helped. And so that visit was actually a pivotal visit for me, with a really highly respected professional, obviously, but it was a pivotal visit for me with developing my understanding of how do you pick fruit and how do you translate what you get in the grape to the wine.
Right.
So, I mean, these are the experiences that you have that as a winemaker to help you develop your craft. So shall we talk about reds a little bit, or would you like to ask some of your questions, or you want to talk about reds?
Well, let's talk about reds.
Okay, so I got a Pinot Noir. Chuck, you know me and Pinot Noir, man. I love Pinot Noir. It is my favorite variety of red grape on the planet. Right. And so this is our 2017 Pinot. This has not been rated by anybody, but it's a really lovely wine. It's this one spent about 16, maybe 18 months in French oak barrels. Our Pinot Noir is always 100% French oak, and it's about 40% new oak, which is expensive but worth it, because I know you've tasted new barrels, and new barrels, they've got that beautiful, impressive flavor profile, but if there's too much of it, it'll overpower and overbalance the wine. And so that's what we go for, about 40% with Pinot Noir. With the heavier reds, we'll go about 50%. So I just need to mention that our last 3 Pinot Noirs, not this one because it's not been submitted anywhere, have all scored 90 points in Wine Enthusiast magazine. So that's pretty good.
Well,
for a small little wine. Huh?
You and Jim Lester do the best Pinots in the state.
Jim Lester may be on this call at some point, because I spoke with him last night. I said, I'm going to be on a call with Chuck Jackson. He said, no way. I said, yes, way. And so anyway, so Jim and I talk all the time, and I think we've both learned quite a bit from each other about making Pinot Noir, and that's made both of us better Pinot Noir makers. And I think that's how it should work. And so anyway, yeah, we're really pleased with the response we've got from the national press about our Pinots. And we also have, this is our 17, but we also have a 17 reserve that we don't even have labeled yet, because we're just letting it sit. And the reason.
How many cases of this 17 do you have?
Oh, geez, we just released it, Chuck, so probably 400. We got plenty of this wine. Yeah, and our distributor, I think Veritas, who's our distributor in the Detroit area, and Great Lakes, who distributes us outside of the Detroit area, I'm pretty sure both of them have this. But here's the thing, is that if they don't have this, they've got the 16, which was one of our 90-point wine enthusiast wines. 16 is delicious. This is brighter fruit, and at the end of the day, I believe will eclipse the 16. I mean, I love the 16, but I think the 17, given another couple of months, is going to be, the richness is going to start to fill out, and this has got brighter fruit than 16. So that's just my opinion. Oh golly, a couple of weeks ago I did a Zoom tasting with a group, and some of them I was featuring the 16, and a bunch of the people had the 16, but some people couldn't get the 16, they had the 17. And so I was really happy because the people that had the 17 were raving about it. I'm thinking like, okay, I'm good with this, you know? So, but it's, you know, for me, it's really heartening, quite frankly, that people like our Pinot Noir, because it's as I mentioned earlier, it's the wine that I like the most. And it's, you know, you know, Pinot Noirs are so difficult. Yeah, they're so variable, and I don't care where you go. I don't care if you go to Burgundy. I don't care if you go to Oregon. Those are my two favorite Pinot Noirs regions, are Oregon and Burgundy. I don't care if you go to these places. I don't care where you go. New Zealand doesn't matter. California doesn't matter. There's so much variability. You can spend 40, 50 bucks on a Pinot Noir and be disappointed, right? Yep. I'm sure that's happened to you, and I'm sorry that's happened to you, but I'm sure it has. Yep. And so, you know, so we sell this one for 25 bucks. Pretty good buy. And so all of those wines, well, one of our 90-point scores was for a $36 Pinot, but the other ones have been $25 Pinots. Pretty good, I think. So
that's a really good price point.
I think it's for Pinot, it's a good price point. For, you know, for other wines, maybe that's a little high, but for Pinot, that's given the difficulty with making good Pinot and the, you know, the variability that you see, I think it's a pretty safe price point for good Pinot, you know. I mean, but you pay that much for Pinot, and you're gonna do okay, and if you're disappointed, you haven't spent a ton, right? So that's so Chuck, the next wines I brought our Bellaga red wine. So we retail this one for 18 bucks. So on special, you can usually get it a little less than that. This is a wine that's a Cabernet Franc based blend. And it's based, it's 35 varieties. I'm sorry, 25 varieties. I misspoke, 25 varieties. 25 varieties. Cab Franc's the heart of the wine. There's usually a little Merlot, there's some Mergant, there's some Marquette, there's some Hungarian varieties. There's a couple of Bulgarian varieties. This is a cool wine. This will make you think, I think, Italy on some days and California on some days. And this wine, in my opinion, at 18 bucks, way over delivers. And, you know, our tasting room manager, even our more expensive wines, this is the wine, this is his go-to wine. Because it's just got such a cool flavor profile. And it's this wine with red meats is perfect. You know, it's just perfect.
Awesome.
So the way we do this wine, it's multiple, it's non-vintage because we'll blend. So the current version is mostly 2017, but it's got some 2018. So the way we make this wine is the heart of the wine is always a wine that's been in barrels for about 16 months. And we'll always blend a little bit of wine that's older, and then we'll blend a little bit of wine that's younger. And we blend the younger wine so that we can have that fresh fruit pop, if you will, to the wine. And so this is a wine, all of our reds in particular, the Pinot Noir. If you're ever up here sometime, Chuck, when we're blending reds,
okay.
you are welcome to sit in our tasting. I mean, we only do this a few times a year, but you would get such a kick out of this because with Pinot Noir, for example, if we have 40 barrels of Pinot Noir in house, we taste all 40 barrels. And then we decide, because we make a few different versions of Pinot Noir, and then we decide where do we want to put each barrel. And so we taste each barrel, we make notes about them. So if you come, it's not free lunch, man. You got to write notes. You got to help us. So
That's cool.
So here's the thing is that those are the most fun days for me in the winery when we blend reds. And we do the same thing with Cab Franc. We do the same thing for Bel Lago Red. We taste all of the barrels that are candidates for that wine, and then we decide what wines go into this wine and what wines go into, what barrels go into wines that we're going to make for custom clients. So we make wine for other wineries too. And so we've got all of these wines, and we decide what goes into our particular bottlings, what goes into their bottlings, and each decision is based on what is the flavor and textural profile that we're looking for that particular wine.
Okay.
And so, you know, I view winemaking as, you know, you've heard the old saying, it's a combination of science and art, right? So the art, you have to understand the science. And I think that we have enough of an understanding of the science that we're okay. And so then it's the art of making wine. And for me, I think about different winemakers, and I think if you think about painters that start with the same palette of paints and a vision for a painting, even if you say paint that tree, right? They're all going to do something different. So for us, it's paint that tree. It's that wine. What do we envision for that wine? So we have a really, another little side jaunt, but we have a really sharing community up here of winemakers, and most of us are friends, and most of us talk freely amongst one another. And so we share ideas, and we share techniques, and we share science. And so we're not afraid to talk to our competitors, if you will, because I mean, winemaking is all about tasting the wine during the progression of the whole process, from grapes to crushing to juice to partially fermented juice to, you know, for juice that's been in the barrel for 1 year and then 2 years. And, you know, do you add tannins in there to change the structure? You know, did you complete a full mill? There's all these factors. And it's all about, you know, what do Blake and I taste, right? And so we taste these wines, and then we make our decisions. So we can tell everybody exactly what we've done. Did we add tannin? Sure. Did we? How many grams per liter did we add? We can tell them. What tannin did we add? Sure, we can tell. What yeast did we use? We can tell them. Doesn't matter. First of all, the fruit's growing on our property, and the winemaking decisions are timed and made by Blake and I based on what we taste, and some chemical analysis as well. But truth is, it's mostly based on what we taste. So we can tell them everything, and they'll never make the same wine. They don't have the same fruit from the same source, and they don't have the same palates. And so it's sort of like, you know, you and I could paint a picture, right? Well, I can't paint. You maybe are a great artist, but I can't paint. But I can make wine. I can make wine, but I can't paint. But anyway, it wouldn't matter because we would never paint the same picture. We wouldn't paint the same picture, Chuck, if we were painting from paint by numbers, man. I mean, seriously. Because one of us would paint outside the line someplace. And so that's one of the things about the winemaking community here in Leelanau, which is so beautiful, is that we share ideas and it makes us all better. But our wines are never the same. You know, so a little longer.
I always tell people it's the winemaker and the terroir, because that's one of the things I want to talk about over by Lake Leelanau, because you're by a lake on a peninsula. What does that do to your grapes?
Well, certainly it has an impact. And, you know, there's other things that obviously have impacts. The variety has an impact. The soils have an impact. And that's really the heart of terroir. Terroir is more than soils, obviously, but it's the heart of terroir is the soils. And it's the climate in which the grapes grow in. but we can modify the climate. When I first came on, and then we sort of lost the connection, there was a machine in the background. That's a leaf blowing machine. And so we do what a lot of people do, is that we remove leaves in the cluster zone to make sure that our grapes are well exposed to sunlight. That helps with disease management because fungi don't like to grow in warm, dry places. They like to grow in warm, wet places, right? And so we remove those leaves, then we get plenty of sun penetration. There's really great data that shows that leaves that are grapes that are exposed to sunlight will get about, well, can get, not always, but can get up to 10 degrees C higher in temperature than grapes that are in the shade. 10 degrees is huge when you think of driving metabolic processes. And so we remove the grapes in the cluster zone for that reason, and we have a machine that helps us do that so that we can go through and make sure it's done on a timely basis, because when you do that is very critical, the timing of when you do that, as to how efficient and effective it is. And so that's another step. So when you think about where we are, the other factors are, how do we handle the fruit where we are, right? And so there's layers of things that impact, obviously, what we do. But you're right. I think that we'll probably never get a sub appellation for a long Lake Leelanau. We'll probably always have the Leelanau Peninsula. But this is why Leelanau Peninsula is slightly different from Old Mission Peninsula, you know? The wines are pretty similar, but they are different.
Yes.
So when you think about the state as a whole, if you think about, say, Southwest Michigan, and let's use Riesling because I think it's a great example for this discussion. If you compare Rieslings from Southwest Michigan to Rieslings from Northwest Michigan, they're different animals.
Yes.
You know, they're both really nice wines, but they're different animals texturally and structurally. But I think that's mostly based on the fact that it's warmer down there. And, you know, up here we have brighter, fresher fruit flavors. Down there, they have deeper, perhaps richer wines in general. We can get the same thing up here and they can get the same thing down there, but in general, that's what I see. Think about comparing, say Mosel Rieslings to the Rieslings from the Pfalz, right? So you know, that's a similar sort of comparison.
Yes.
Not exact, but similar.
Yeah.
So the last wine that I brought just to talk about is Tempesta. So I know you know Tempesta, and that's the wine that you talked about earlier. So this is 13. This is 13 Tempesta.
What's the blend?
Who knows, man? No, I actually look. This wine is about, you know, I like to say that. So this is sort of the reserve version of the Bellago Red, right? But I like to say Tempesta compared to Bellago is a rather simple wine because it's only about 15 varieties instead of 25. But the heart of this wine is Cab Franc. This wine always has more Cab Franc than the Bellago Red. This wine sometimes has Merlot and sometimes does not. This wine.
This is what you determine at your tastings. I mean, at your blending session.
Correct. And both of these wines have, you know, there's the German variety Regant. Both these have that as part of the component. Do you know the variety Regant?
Yeah, I learned it from you.
So you probably haven't had it by itself. So Regant by itself, it's really deeply pigmented, and it will remind you a little bit of the Rhone, but it's not Syrah, it's not Grenache, it's not Mourvedre. It's just, you know, it reminds you of that style of wine. And the first time I ever this was another good learning experience for me. The first time I tasted that variety was with the breeder at an experiment station at Gabeilerhof in Germany, where this variety was bred. And I remember tasting that wine. You remember Stan Howell. So Stan Howell and I were traveling in, you probably know Dave Miller too, right?
Yeah,
So,
yes.
so Dave and Stan and I were traveling in Germany together many years ago. And we were tasting with the breeder of Regant at Gabeilerhof Experiment Station. And that was and what they were trying to do was to create a red hybrid that would have the quality of vinifera and the tannin structure of vinifera, which previously hadn't really been done. And they achieved that with Regant. And Regant, you know, the classification system in Germany with the highest wines being awarded Qualitas Wein predicate, right? QMP. They've granted that status to Regant some years ago, which was really unusual because it is indeed a hybrid and not a pure vinifera. But I tasted that wine, I thought, wow, this is something that we can grow in our climate that is a shorter season grape than Syrah, and we should be looking at this. And so I planted that about 30 years ago. So that trip that I mentioned was over 30 years ago, because I planted that variety in my vineyard 30 years ago. And wait a minute. Oh, I'm wrong. 25 years ago. Sorry, Chuck. But but a long time ago nonetheless. But so I always thought that was a variety that we could actually blend, and not have to blend, that we could grow, that we could make a varietal from. But in our climate, it's a much better blending variety. And so we use it in Bellaga Red and we use it in Tempesta because it provides that Syrah-like component, which I don't think up north here we can really grow great Syrah, but it provides that Syrah-like component and that sort of jamminess.
Yeah.
And we, you know, its tannins aren't quite like Syrah, but you know what? We get plenty of tannins from Cab Franc and Merlot. It's not a problem. You know, so we're able to craft these wines, and Tempesta has been such a special wine for us. It's been our premium red for years. We sell it for $42 a bottle, and we have to basically put it on allocation. So it's great to have that problem, if you will, you know. So before I get off of reds, I just want to mention that, you know, Blake and I both love reds, and I think by the end of by midsummer, we will hopefully be fully opened up. We are remodeling our tasting room right now, and for those that have been to our tasting room, we expanded it, and we now have built a horseshoe bar in the center of the tasting room and put in a lot more glass. Okay. And so everyone in the tasting room will be able to look out over the lake and be facing the lake when they taste. And last year we put in this really beautiful stone patio out front. So right now we're open only for tasting on the patio, but it's beautiful. We're overlooking the lake. It's warm. It's, you know, so come see us. And inside the tasting room, we will have this beautiful horseshoe bar and lots of glass, and it's going to be great. But due to COVID,
I know a friend of mine I've been working on a project with for like the last 2 years. We've been trying to get back up there. So when we come up, I'll definitely stop through, but definitely keep me in the loop about your blending sessions. And what I'll do is I'll make a point of whenever you say you're doing it, I'll just come up.
Chuck, it'll be short notice. I will do that, but it'll be short notice because Blake and I decide it's pretty much like, hey, you got time next week to taste the Pinots? Yep. Okay. So that's because you gotta remember they've been in barrels for like a long time. So yeah. It's never urgent But once we decide that,
It's
oh, let's
time.
get those in the bottle, it sort of becomes sort of urgent. You know how that goes, right? So anyway, so I'm happy to do that, Chuck. So because
Cool.
you would so enjoy this. I know you would. You know, I mean, we've had people in the tasting room that have been there when we go down there to taste, and we say, hey, you know, they're the lucky ones, right? You want to come down and taste these wines? And we always make them work. I mean, I'm not kidding you.
Right.
We want comments and we want notes. So you know, and it's part of the thing about winemaking. Tastings like that. Tastings like the one that I did earlier today, where we tasted 30 versions of French Valley Vineyard wine. Oh, and we found some real gems. Oh my gosh, the 2012 Merlot, absolutely dynamite. Oh my gosh. Oh yeah, there were more like that, but that was the one for me. That was like the star of the tasting. It was just like, oh my gosh, this is so good. I mean, the 16 Merlot Reserve, beautiful wine, but the 12's got 4 more years aging on it, you know. And so, but tastings like that, they're a lot of fun, but they're all, for us, they're serious work. And we're taking notes, and you know, I'd be lying if I said we didn't enjoy every minute of it, because we do, but we love what we do. But you know, we have to make, particularly with the blending, we have to make firm decisions. And once we do the blends, it's done. We can't go back, you know. And so that's why these tasting, and so we won't ever do this just one tasting. You know, we'll do one tasting where we taste all the barrels, and at that point, our palates are pretty cashed out, but we'll still try to do like several potential blends so that we can get a clue. Then we'll come back another day and we'll taste the blend. So we'll pull all the samples again, and we'll do all of the blends, and we'll decide at that point which wine is what we like. Usually we can do it in 2, maybe 3 sessions. I think the most difficult wine, oh, I forget the vintage year right now, Chuck, but it was a Chardonnay, one of our Burgundian style Chardonnays. We had all these barrels. It took 9 tastings for us to decide which one we liked the best, because we just couldn't. We just, you know, it just took a while to hit just the right blend. Because, you know, you think about this, you know, you change a barrel, whatever, by 10%, and you change another barrel by 10%. I mean, there's an infinity of possibilities. And so I suppose I might, yeah, I mean, I might argue it's like a painter, right? You finally say, okay, that blue's good enough, right? You know, I mean, it's like, you know, it's like, I love this wine. Could we make it better? Maybe, but we've been at this for a while, so our customers are going to love it. We love it. Let's see how it does, right? So, because with so many barrels, it's just so many possibilities. So,
Definitely.
yeah. So anyway, so I don't know. What do you want me to talk about? I'm done with the wines that I want to talk about. I'm happy to answer questions. And
I had the one question, number 3. The grape that takes very little effort to make a great or good wine out of, and then one that requires more effort.
oh, you know what, Chuck? That's really easy. The grape that takes the least effort to make a really good wine is Cayuga White. So, do you know Cayuga White?
Yes, I do.
Okay, I figured you did. So, Cayuga White, you know, it's a hybrid grape. I think it was created at Geneva Experiment Station in New York in 1956. It's got Riesling in the parentage and a bunch of other stuff. And it gives this Riesling-like wine, but it's so disease resistant that it's easy to grow. We practically never spray it. And we grow it on a Geneva double curtain system, which means it's a divided system. So it's divided horizontally. And we harvest 7.5 tons per acre, which is California-like numbers from that variety. And so that's why we use it in our Leelanau Primavera and our Brilliante, because those are relatively inexpensive wines. And we can afford to do that because we get so many grapes from it. So it's easy to grow. The key to that variety is when you pick it. So the interesting thing with Cayuga White is that the flavor profile changes dramatically as the variety ripens. And so the key is, where do you harvest it? And where you harvest it depends on what type of wine you want to make. And so for the Primavera and the Brilliante, we want a really bright, almost raisin-like, fresh fruit-like flavor. And so we tend to harvest it a little bit earlier. And so that's the easiest one. The hardest one, hands down, is Pinot Noir.
Okay.
It's not even close. I mean, Pinot Noir, difficult to grow, difficult to make harvest decisions because it's so prone to disease problems. We've learned how to handle that in how we grow it, and you can't overcrop it if you want to make good Pinot, and then carry that on to the cellar. Any winemaker will tell you that making great Pinot Noir is very difficult. And so the fact that we've made, I think, really good progress in that direction, and I think our responses nationally have helped showing that. But I think the fact we've made great progress means we're learning something about how to deal with this grape. And so it's, we experiment at Bel Lago, we experiment constantly. And so we try to learn new things every year. And so how we make Pinot Noir now, for example, compared to how we made Pinot Noir, say, in 2010, 2012, completely different. That's why my comment earlier about, I wish I would have known in 2007, which was a great vintage. I wish I would have known in 2007 what I know now, because that was a great vintage and the wines are aging beautifully. But oh my goodness, if we would have applied the strategies that we do now to that vintage, oh, it could have been incredibly special. So we've learned a lot. I mean, that's over a decade, and we've learned a lot because we experiment every year. And our goal is to become better winemaking scientists and better artisans. That's our goal. Because Blake and I both, I mean, we love making wine, and we just, it's I don't know how else to put it. It's just a complete and total hoot. I mean, it's a complete and total hoot. I mean, we love it. It's a challenge.
Last question. How has climate change affected you guys?
Hasn't yet.
It hasn't?
No, Chuck, I think I'm in sort of the naysayer group. I don't want to suggest in any way, shape, or form that I'm a climate change denier, because I'm not. It's happening. I don't think it has changed things here enough to have made a significant impact. I think that day is probably coming, but it's not here yet, in my opinion. There are others that disagree with me. But, if I look at, the ripeness indices and the heat units that have occurred here over the last several vintages, they're not crazy different from what we saw 10, 15 years ago. So, maybe that's when it started, right? I mean, if you go back longer, then maybe we're seeing more effect. And the one thing I want to mention is that what I think we are seeing is warmer winters, and that is a factor. I think what you're alluding to is, are we going to get riper grapes? And so can we, can we start to ripen things like Sauvignon Blanc more, right? Or can we pick some, do we have any shot at making a really full-bodied Syrah, for instance? Or can we start to grow Sangiovese, a grape that I love, and Nebbiolo, one of my favorite grapes on the planet, right? Well, yeah. I love that grape. I've tried to grow it. We can't grow it. It doesn't get ripe. And so, will we ever move to a place where we can grow those? Maybe. We're not there yet. And so some people are planting some grapes that they think will benefit from warmer seasons. We are not doing that yet, except for one exception. That's an Italian variety called Turaldico, because it's sort of on the edge and it will ripen reasonably well in the situation that we have now. Or the other one I guess we've planted is Tempranillo. But the thing about Tempranillo is that Tempranillo does not have to be super ripe to make nice, supple red wine. To make really great Tempranillo, it does, but to use it in a blend, it does not. So anyway, it's winter temperatures were moving in a new direction, I think, but it's not been enough years yet for me to say that we're going to plant new things. You know, I mean, think about northern Michigan whites. What might happen is that maybe we lose a little bit of that crisp freshness that we have, right? That beautiful, bright fruit. I don't want to lose that. Well, if we do, well, then maybe we need to think about how we process the wines and try to emphasize that component in the cellar while taking advantage of those riper flavors that we might get. So I think that no matter what happens here, if we do get warmer, I think we've got a pretty big window of time because climate change happens rather slowly. And so we have a window of time where I think that we can adapt, I mean. And I'm not in the group that's ready to start planting new varieties yet. I think we can work with what we have, and maybe our wines take on a little bit more richness. But that day may well come. So.
Well, on that note, Charlie, it was great talking to you. I always learn a lot whenever I talk to you. And let's just stay in touch, and I'll see how soon I can get up there.
Yeah, it'd be great to see you, Chuck. I really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you, and I appreciate your letting me indulge in some of these long discussions. You know me, I can talk forever about grapes and wine. I love it.
But that's how we all learn, and because I have a couple of young winemakers down here that I want to bring up to meet you anyway.
Be terrific. Be happy to chat with them.
Cool. But
yeah.
Have a great weekend, Charlie.
You too, man.
Talk to you later, man.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.